From WAMU, I'm Esther Chamakili. It's 6:05. Affordable housing has economic benefits, research shows. But as WAMU's Ali Schweitzer reports, a new study says it might also have health benefits.
And so for Midtown, we're able to utilize 4 different patterns. And at the Midtown Open House, we're able to show what some renderings of those could look like. And we also had some maps that show where they might be allowed to go. And this is all draft right now, and so nothing's set in stone, but we're able to kind of show to the public where the different patterns might be showing up in Midtown. The first pattern that we talked about is the cottage pattern. And so this is a small house that could be utilized in the back of someone's property, and they might be able to rent it out as an income property, or they could build it on an individual lot and just have a smaller home that's a little bit more affordable and easier to maintain. Third pattern building is called the apartment house. And this looks just like a single family home, and it's been specifically designed to fit within Midtown, but it actually has 3 separate units. And so we think that this is a good option where you can have different types of people living under one roof, but it would still fit within the neighborhood integrity of Midtown. So this is just one example of what the pattern could look like. With the pattern zoning, we want to make sure that they don't all look exactly the same. And so there's going to be different facade options. You can have a different porch here, different porch there, and that's all going to be included in the pattern book. If someone's interested in diverting even further from the changes that we have in the pattern book, then we're going to have a process for them to be able to do that as well. So the last pattern that we have is called the walk-up, and that's because you use stairs to go to the next floor, not an elevator. And this can go either 2 or 3 stories in height, just depending on where it's pre-approved. We don't want to pre-approve a 3-story building all over Midtown. That's not what we're doing. And so we have specific areas that we think might be appropriate for a taller structure. So also, depending on where you are, if the underlying zoning allows, and if you're more on a corner or something like that, then you have an option for the bottom story of this building to be used for more of a retail use rather than a residential use. And so this could have 8 to 12 different units depending on the size of the 2 or the 3 stories, but also it could have a retail component, and that helps bring a smaller scale of retail into different areas, so that helps increase walkability.
Vail, like many other mountain communities in Colorado, is facing a housing dilemma.
The average price of the home now of a single-family home here in Vail is about $2.3 million.
And that average is going up every month. Like other mountain communities, the majority of homes here sit empty most of the year. They're second homes that might get used a couple of days or a couple of weeks a year. The pandemic has only made the housing crunch worse.
When more and more people could work remotely and they could take advantage of living in a place like Vail and still, having their jobs elsewhere.
Vail is also surrounded by U.S. forest property with practically no chance to expand its borders. But this ski town has been a pioneer of sorts. In 2018, it created a first-of-its-kind deed restriction program.
Vail and Deed is simply a program where the town goes out and purchases a deed restriction on that property from the property owner.
And when the owner goes to sell, they must choose someone living and working full-time in the community.
Vail and Deed, I'll be honest, it's been a game changer. It was that program that kind of moved the needle for us here in town.
Right now, there are 162 deed-restricted homes, some bought, some built. Just one of a number of ideas the town is trying to help with the housing shortage.
Today, Co-op City is one of the largest middle-class communities of color in the nation. At $58,000 per household, Co-op City residents earn close to New York City's median income. But while New York City's median wage earner pays over 65% of their income in rent in the private market, Co-op City's residents pay less than 20% of their income towards their cooperative housing costs. For a 2-bedroom apartment, incoming residents pay just $20,000, full purchase price.
If you're like most people who own a home in a manufactured home community, you don't actually own the land underneath. This exposes you to potential rent increases year after year, with lot fees going towards someone else's profit. You might even lose your right to live there if your community gets sold for redevelopment, and you may have few or no viable options. And that's exactly why hundreds of communities are turning to a proven model of land ownership: resident-owned communities. That's where residents purchase their communities at fair market value, becoming the new owners through what's called a co-op or cooperative structure. They make decisions through their membership and an elected board of directors. Residents also set their own lot fees and put revenues back into community improvements. In fact, resident-owned communities are proven to increase lot fees at far lower rates than commercially owned communities. Learn more and take the first steps toward turning your neighborhood into a resident-owned community with Rock USA and its national network.
I grew up here and loved it, still do. Emma is a place where my children feel like they belong. I love this neighborhood. There's a sense of community. We take care of each other. Some people might not understand how we live, but for my family, a mobile home is dignified, affordable housing, and our mobile home park is full of friends and family. When Poder Emma went door to door to talk to hundreds of Emma residents, these are some of the things neighbors shared that they love about Emma. People also told us about their dreams for the future of Emma: a park, sidewalks, to be able to stay in the neighborhood despite rising housing costs, and the dream of owning the land underneath their mobile homes. We can become the planners, architects, and engineers of the future of our neighborhood through a neighborhood planning process to ensure that our neighborhood's future is designed by and for the people that live in Emma now, our children and our grandchildren.
A mile and a half down this road is the Jackson Zoo. It's the largest golf course in the city of Jackson. And then right behind that is the original airport. And then right behind that, there's a free trade zone. You have this downtown expanse of new businesses. They want to create that connect people to the zoo. This way is like your due north, and the gentrification is coming down this way. We've become, I would argue, a roadblock by, in many respects, fortifying this institution. Most of this block is owned by that organization. That organization is a Christian-based homeless center. It's the largest homeless service provider in the state of Mississippi. The Chamber of Commerce, they've been trying to remove them from this block for a long time. Between basically two organizations, we now own 90% of this block. So if we don't sell, there's no pressure for them to have to move their operation. It means that the forces of gentrification have less of an incentive to come here. And this is a communally owned space, it's not individually owned. And this is a communally owned space, it's not individually owned. Options for the community of how land ownership and things can be different and serve different purposes.
In the United States, the Co-Housing Association of America estimates there are about 150 communities. Rocky Hill Co-Housing in Northampton, Massachusetts was established 12 years ago. It has 28 households with residents ranging from age 2 to 80. With a similar financial model to Sette Demme, Rocky Hill has a variety of common spaces, resources, activities, and shared chores. Carol Reinhardt is 72 years old and just retired from her job as a hospice coordinator. She's lived at Rocky Hill since its formation.
You don't get up someday in the morning and say, I think this is the day I'm going to have a community. You build a community.
Time-tested, evidence-based addiction recovery homes.
In my addiction, I was homeless, living on the streets, living in abandoned houses, walking aimlessly in life, using drugs heavily, drinking very heavily, getting arrested several times. I was in and out of jails, treatment centers, trying to get sober, and just going back out there over and over again in a vicious cycle.
Several terms are used to describe recovery homes. The most common include halfway house, three-quarter house, sober living, and group home. Oxford House is unique and is in a category all its own. It differs from traditional sober residential environments in many ways. These unique characteristics can be found in the history of the organization, the structure model upon which all houses are built, and the documented benefits for both the member living in the home and the entire community.
Down payment assistance program launched this morning, and already more than 250 potential home buyers have applied for $20,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance. Community Home Trust is running this program. They say there's enough money to cover 285 qualified home buyers. It will be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis until the money runs out. DPA is aiming to help low-income families buy their first house inside Durham city limits. And according to Realtor.com, the median list price for a home in Durham in February was $365,000.
It's just that DFI focuses on development finance and public-private partnerships.
DFI plays a unique role in that we help to liaise between private developers and local government officials who don't always see eye to eye or understand each other's interests and motivations. We do a really good job at building that bridge so they can figure out what they have in common and help them work towards a goal that's mutually beneficial for them and for the community. DFI does the work that the private sector would do in researching an opportunity, understanding where market opportunities lie, mapping the economic and cultural assets of a community, building the story to show that there is an investment opportunity in a community.
DFI worked with Chatham County on the Henry Seiler School, a historic elementary school. It's on a little less than 3 acres of land. They did an analysis, and DFI showed how many units could go on that property if it were to be turned into affordable housing. With the help that DFI provided, we were able to actually do exactly what was recommended.
It is particularly important to LGFCU that the DFI program is available to all of the communities in North Carolina, in particular the low-income, under-resourced, distressed communities. What makes me proud about the DFI program, it doesn't go in to preach to a community, this is what you should do. It goes to a community to understand what are your needs, what are your ambitions, what do the local citizens say about the community, then how might we provide resources to help you get there.
But for someone who's really putting in the work and trying and no results, it's just really hard and heartbreaking because the children are the ones that suffer the most.
Parks represents the story of many families in Raleigh who can't find affordable housing. Nearly 100% of the city's affordable rental units are full. Here at Walnut Terrace Apartments, the wait for a 2- and 3-bedroom home is 5 years.
I just want the world to know that we need help.
All over the city, there are new apartment buildings with premium rents. The Pattern downtown rents 1 bedrooms for $16.39 a month, 2 bedrooms for up to $2,600 a month. But that's not the rent Susan Roderick charges her tenants in Montford.
So I own a small apartment building, and I try to keep it affordable for people who work downtown, or maybe they're teachers, massage therapists.
Roderick feels there's untapped inventory in old homes.
Maybe they're held up in an estate, but the city could encourage some property owners to build more.
She thinks leaders should think outside the box and create an incentive plan for old homes people could rehab and add to workforce affordable housing.
That would be monumental for us here in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County.
Currently, people with housing choice vouchers are waiting months to find housing, and some are without any luck.
As it sits right now, that is the current struggle. It's not that it's a lack of housing, it is a lack of participation by the landlords and property managers.
Kenneth Robinson with Freedom Fighting Missionaries tells me the problem is worse with new developments coming into the city with no plans to accept housing vouchers. He works with people formerly incarcerated, helping them find housing.
We need every tool in our tool belt to begin to address the issue.
If approved by City Council, any housing developments that accepted city money would have to accept housing choice vouchers and other legal sources of income by the tenant.
Too many cases here in Charlotte and throughout the country, individuals have been denied housing simply because the tenants would not accept those type of incomes and/or vouchers.
It's our hope that this is just a continued demonstration of the city's support for individuals in the community that are struggling with housing. And this is our way to address something that we can control as it relates to projects that the city funds, either through our Housing Trust Fund or other funding mechanisms.
Freedom Fighting Missionaries believe it would make a big difference to the roughly 3,000 homeless in the city.
A great percentage of those individuals currently have vouchers, qualify for vouchers. So right away, if a new development came in and that rule was implemented, people would come off of the street, out to shelters, out of hotels, and be able to have stable, safe housing.
Lee Cochran is the Senior VP of Development for Laurel Street, an affordable housing developer in Charlotte. He says the need for low-income housing has grown significantly in recent years, but so has the challenges to build them.
And it's becoming harder and harder to produce the same amount of housing with the same resources we used to have because construction costs have been rising. Developments that were funded with low-income housing tax credits across North Carolina were ready to go, but they couldn't actually close and start construction because they had a funding gap because of that construction cost.
That may change. Congresswoman Alma Adams introduced a bipartisan bill called the Lifeline Act that would make American Rescue Plan funds available to offset those costs.
Our legislation removes the statutory barriers in place so that cities and counties and states can use their state and local fiscal recovery fund dollars to support affordable housing development.
A move she says is necessary to address the housing crisis.